Hey guys. Alright, what I've got here is a Glock 27 Generation 4 and a Glock 23 Generation 3. You'll have to excuse my video. I don't do very many videos. Mainly just making this one so I can upload it and try to help as many people as I can, because this modification really helped me out a lot. So what I have is a Glock 27, and this is my carry gun, and this is my project gun. So with any typical stock Glock, you have this spongy take-up. By the way, these weapons have been safety checked. They're all good, unloaded. So yeah, you have this spongy take-up, and you know, one main thing that irks me about Glocks, I love Glocks. I love everything about them except the grips. Especially with the subcompacts, because you see where that hump is. It fits in my palm swell and it pushes the trigger out really far, and it's just not a very natural point of aim. Not so much with the compact and full-size guns, but that's not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about the trigger. So let's just get right into it. I have done something to this Glock trigger that I actually seen a video of an aftermarket trigger that used 100% OEM Glock parts. So I mean, a stock Glock trigger bar, you know, the connector, housing, all of the above. And what I've done is I've made a small modification that has gotten rid of all that take-up, like you just seen on my factory Glock here. We're able to bypass that to where we just have about an 1/8 inch of play, hits a wall, break. And I'm telling you, it's very deliberate. It's very smooth, and it feels great. So let's get into it and see what we did here. So as I said, they've been safety checked. Just pulled the trigger. So, like I said, a little bit of backstory here. I was looking to turn this gun into a project gun, and I was looking into aftermarket triggers, and the specific one that I copycatted here really caught my eye because it got rid of a lot of that spongy take-up, and in turn that you know, that helped my trigger reach. Just it makes the gun more comfortable, which is good for me. So what you get in this trigger mod is the same thing that you pull out of a stock gun. What I've done is I've polished it just like they did. I polished the trigger connector and the trigger bar. I use Flitz, but you can use Mother's mag wheel, a bunch of other polishes out there, but I like Flitz. So I have the typical 5.5 pound connector. I believe the aftermarket one comes with a 3.5. I'm sure that just adds to the, you know, the candy cane break that everybody's looking for. But you know, it works great with the stock one as well. It also, the aftermarket one comes with a firing pin spring or a striker spring. I think it's like 4.5 pounds or something like that. And a polished OEM firing pin safety. So getting into it, I started looking at the picture, and I asked myself, well, if they're using 100% Glock parts, what are they doing that I can't? So looking deeper in the picture, I found that they had, let's see if I can get this to focus, they had like a little hole right here. And, you know, I started taking parts out of the gun, and I started, you know, slowly figuring out what they did. And what they did is they drilled a hole and put a pin through the trigger shoe. And what that does is it stops the trigger shoe when the trigger bar is resetting. It stops the shoe from coming all the way out. You see that? Just like that. And believe it or not, just that is enough to where you can get rid of a lot of that take-up. Now, I've seen some other videos on here of a guy, he had like a 3-part video about sticking a screw inside of his receiver and all this stuff. I really didn't like that. So, like I said, I was looking for another way, and I found it here. Now, there is one other thing that I noticed was right here. See if I get it to focus. I noticed that that hole was bigger on their trigger shoe than it was mine. And I found out that they had to cut, you'll see it when you take yours out, they had to cut the little knuckle off in order for the trigger safety, the safety on the shoe there, to still be functional. But that, you know, you can cut that part off. I used an X-Acto knife, and I heated it up with a lighter, and it just iced right through it. But you know, that part doesn't really take much stress, so you know, it's not a big deal. Really, none of this takes that much stress up in this area. And I know people are going to say what they're going to say. You're going to have haters out there, but I understand this, and I understand that, you know, it's not that big of a deal. I believe the design, the aftermarket part that I copycatted actually was approved for law enforcement. So, you know, we're not doing anything too wild here. Well, and I know with some aftermarket triggers, you give up one, if not two, of your safeties. Well, I've already illustrated that we're not giving up the trigger shoe safety there, and we're not giving up the firing pin safety either. And I'll get to that in just a second. Let me put this back together. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you that hole that I had drilled right there, I used a 1/16 of an inch drill bit, and that was the perfect size. And what I did is I bought a second drill bit, and I cut it off, and I used the drill bit as a pin. You know, at first I was thinking I should glue it in there, epoxy it, something like that. But once I put the pistol back together, I realized that once you put the locking block in and get everything together, that part of the trigger shoe, that part of the trigger where I inserted that pin, it's actually right up against the wall of the receiver there, so it's not going anywhere. So let me go ahead and put the slide back on here, and I'll show you about that firing pin safety. So what we have is right down there. We can see the trigger bar. It's on the the firing pin safety. And if you look, oh, trigger broke. If you look closely, it's not actually engaging it until the trigger breaks. So you're not giving up any of your safeties. You know, I found that this this modification, it helps with my trigger reach. The trigger is much more deliberate, and it, you know, it almost just feels better in my hand. So I got pink on my finger. I was just doing my wife's her gun. I was color filling it, but so yeah, I mean, if you're looking for an inexpensive modification, and you know, you don't want to have to go out and spend $100 and some on a trigger assembly, this may be an option for you. You know, I know people are gonna say what they're gonna say. They're gonna say, "Oh, it's unsafe," or "You didn't safety check your gun," or some crap. I really don't care. Like I said, I'm more or less just doing this to help somebody else out there. Like I said, the only modification I've seen to even come close to this is to stick a screw in the receiver. So, you know, I hope this helped whoever. If you have any questions, you know, just post them under the comments. I have fired this. It's worked flawlessly, and you know, if something comes up and you realize you don't like it, you can always just push the pin out. It's not a big deal. I mean, you'll have a little hole in there, but it's not going to stop your trigger shoe or your trigger bar from, you know, engaging your trigger shoe all the way back out again. It's something that's completely reversible. So you know, what's it going to hurt? And you know, if it really bothers you that much, you can buy a factory Glock trigger bar for like $16. Hey, and that'll give you an excuse to buy the smooth face trigger. So you know, I hope this helped. Like I said, if you guys have any questions, just post it on the comments, and that's it.